Welcome to my 6-month update of studying the Thai language. If you've been following along with me, you probably noticed that the techniques I've used, my experiences of studying the Thai language has definitely changed over this past 6 months. And this is kind of a reflection video along with my 365-hour update of comprehensible input. So the first part of this video is just going to be about, what's causing, by the way, there's the beach right over there. So it is a great end of February right here. Beautiful beach area. But this video is going to cover three main things. One of them is going to be, why is my learning style changing over this past 6 months? And what is it changing more into? And what's my plans and next steps? But also an overview of what is it like finishing the B3 playlist, accumulating 365 hours of comprehensible input through the Comprehensible Thai YouTube channel. We're gonna do a reflection, so stay tuned of what I can basically understand, the actual result of using this method, so you get a general idea where you may be, and a general overview and a review of the playlist itself and what I actually thought about it. So the first part, this is a very interesting question. So I had somebody comment, another Thai language learner on my YouTube channel of, I've changed my learning style quite a bit from when I first started studying Thai. When I was actually first out here on this beach right over here, I made a statement that I was going to use these textbooks to study the Thai language. And this is because, how things were for me over 10 years ago is that, 10 plus years ago, I was actually in university. I was studying chemistry. And at that time I was studying chemistry and biochemistry. I was a student, and something I did just for fun was that I studied the Japanese language throughout my years of undergrad university for fun, and it was just a hobby of mine. And reflecting back, a lot of those ideas what I used to study Japanese and what I actually thought about the language itself was actually quite interesting. So this is a reflective part of this video. When I was actually studying Japanese, I don't even think I enjoyed Japanese that much. I enjoyed, the culture, enjoyed sushi, samurai stuff. I actually went to Japan and I was able to basically function in the Japanese language, but I was able to function, do basic things in Japan, ask for directions, order food, and do very surface level interactions with natives, even years after studying. So I got done studying Japanese, I wanna say right around 2013, 2014. And it wasn't until 2018 timeframe that I actually went to Japan and got to try to use the language with natives in real life when I stayed there, and actually proposed to my girlfriend there, who's now my wife. If you didn't know, there's this really famous statue, the Hachiko statue, about a dog that waited for its owner. The owner actually dies, but the dog waited every single day at the train station for the owner to come back. And I thought this would have been a great place to propose to my girlfriend, who happened to be Thai. So this is why we're at this YouTube channel right now, because now, years later, I need to study this Thai language. But just a reflection of what I did then. So I used the Genki textbooks. I did a lot of kanji practice, kanji writing, kanji reading. And I was always the type of person who loved standardized exams, the LSAT, MCAT, PCAT, whatever, GRE, whatever it was. I studied it kind of for fun. And I just like the gamification of standardized exams and, to be competitive and see what I was able to do by really gaming the system. So again, I went through the Genki textbooks. I went through the intermediate, it was like integrated Japanese at the time. And then later I bought the Tobiya textbooks and worked through those on my own. I worked for the Japan Center at the University of West Florida, where I was able to do very basic level phone call and scheduling for this Japanese event for the Japanese consult here in Florida for a major event. Once in a year event, I was able to do basic functions and schedule people in Japanese. But that was the peak of my language learning. At the time, my reading and writing was completely a whole nother level compared to my actual speaking Japanese and my understanding. And I just thought this was normal, but I had to translate pretty much everything in my head from Japanese into English to fully understand what the person was saying. It wasn't automatic. It wasn't like I was talking in my native language. It was more that I was always translating. Now, for content, what I consumed was a lot of Asian horror films, like Japanese horror films. I love the Ju-on, Ringu, and things in that nature. Those were one of my favorite genres of films. Now, it wasn't comprehensible at all. I just took an impression. I need to be surrounded by the language. I changed my phone into Japanese. I changed pretty much everything around me into Japanese, and it worked pretty well, but it didn't allow the language to be automatic or, in my head at all. I always had to translate, and I honestly felt I love the JLPT exams way more the actual language itself. When I did interact with natives, as long as they kept it very superficial and they made everything really dumbed down for me, I could understand them quite well. I can navigate, do basic functions very well. My vocab on paper was large, but actual active vocabulary where I can use it with natives and understand it in multiple contexts was actually very, very low. Besides, again, the exams. I was able to take the exams and do well because there's no speaking portion of the Japanese language exam. Fast forward, I did, study other languages that I eventually, searched on YouTube 10 years ago. And there's this professor guy with Ask Me, Teach Yourself and all these other books. And he was very more academic. And then there was this other guy who was going to like restaurants, gas stations, and just surprising natives with there's very broken language abilities. But at the time, it was amazing because, nobody else on YouTube was really promoting language learning and surprising people. And it was just so rare that these are like the kind of extremes you really had to deal with at the time. But I eventually did. I fell into learning other languages, one of them such as Russian. And this has really changed my learning aspect of things completely. And to bring up my Russian skills, what I did then, I used the Ask Me book, the Ask Me Russian. It was in English for the beginner. It's just the B2 level, but really wasn't that high. It was probably just, upper A2 at most. And then I used a translator to try to get through the French portion of their Perfection, the advanced Russian book in the Asimil. And I went to a Russian church for 3 years, studying with the Russian kids in a special center and interacting with a Russian community. I had a Russian doctor at the time, and I spent a lot of practice speaking, getting corrected a ton, and this helped a lot. I was able to hold basic conversations in Russian after 3 years of studying. Reading wasn't that bad, but I still made a lot of grammatical mistakes, and I had a lot of negative feedback from the native speakers who were teaching me, all these tutors who I was working with. And so I was always double thinking in my head, like what to say, what not to say, how to, conjugate everything, like change the endings of the sentences. And, it was a good learning experience. I consumed some Russian content, Russian YouTubers, and had no real major problems with Russian. I was still translating in my head still, and I had a voice, a monitor voice, what some people will call it, that, was watching out for what I was saying to make sure it was grammatically correct, and that was always on. I always felt like I was translating, editing, and then speaking, and still had an accent. It wasn't really automatic, but at that point, Russian was in French at one point were, some of my highest levels of language comprehension that I had. It was way better than my Japanese, and I thought this was like the ultimate method to learn languages. So I approached Thai 6 months ago. Right out here, I made a statement I was going to use the Thai Ask Me book and the Becker's book that everybody recommends on YouTube to learn the Thai language. These were, highly rated, and basically anybody who was really good at speaking Thai recommended these books. So this is the approach I was going to take. I was practically going to follow what I did with Russian minus the script. I feel like the Thai script, I know some people in the comment section still don't like this, but I feel like the Thai script is more complicated than the Russian script by far. If you compare it to the Japanese script, yeah, there's a lot of different symbols, but they're kind of, separate, and they separate words and the tones aren't there. And I just feel like everything mixed together make learning the Thai script at first. If you don't know what the language sounds like at all, I didn't consume any Thai content. I never really paid attention to my wife speaking Thai to her friends or family. It was just too difficult to wrap my head around the Thai script. So besides learning the script in Russian right off the bat when I first started studying Russian. That's the only major difference I was going to approach the Thai language with. And starting around, I guess, the pandemic time, there was a lot of content produced of comprehensible input. And at that time, I wasn't studying languages. I was too busy working in healthcare. And there was a lot of other content produced. There's a lot of people on YouTube that changed the paradigm of how people study languages. And comprehensible input apparently became this big thing that I never knew about when I was studying languages, again, 10 plus years ago. So this is why when I got exposed to it, I was very skeptical at first. I didn't believe this was actually going to work. And why would studying a language through listening only allow you to understand so much more than actually sitting down with a grammar style book, a grammar translation method? And what I discovered was that when I actually went back to my ASML book after the B1 series, I discovered that I was able to understand so much more in the ASML book that I was really struggling with. So around lesson 70, I feel like the ASML book really picked up on vocabulary, grammatical aspects, and the speed of the language itself. And when I went back there, it has seemed way too easy. And going back there after the B2 playlist, it seems like I knew everything that the book was already trying to teach me at that point. So right now with the ASML book, I know somebody commented like, what was I doing with ASML? I finish up the passive wave. So I listen and put all the words, kind of together in my mind. I'm at the point after finishing now where pretty much any part of the ASML book is very comprehensible, just the audio portion. I'm not looking at the translations on the side. I'm just listening to it in the car while I'm driving somewhere, and it's very understandable. So as right now, all active studying is paused, where I'm actually sitting down with a book and doing translations or trying to study vocabulary. I've really doubled down on the comprehensible input method, and this really, shows the amount of hours I've been doing. So I basically referred all my real estate clients off to other real estate agents right now. And I kind of stopped all activities, hobbies, and things I did for fun besides language learning. Now, I don't know if this is good long-term because if you're not moving around, exercising as much, it's gonna be harder to keep up your health. And I don't know how healthy this was, but I was basically focusing, over 5 hours a day. Plus, my amount of videos I watched was way greater than 5. It was more like 9 to 12 videos every single day in the comprehensible Thai input playlist, and that really helped me knock out a lot of the videos very, very quickly. Now, talking about the playlist, let's get a part 2 about my overview of what is it like to actually use the playlist and my results I got. I thought overall the videos were very, very well put together. I actually preferred this playlist more to any of the other ones just because that they separate the teachers out a little bit better besides the end of the playlist. I don't know why, but these two teachers together for the last, it seems like 20, 30 videos, just back to back to back with these longer videos at the end. It just seems kind of out of place. I don't know if they should just mix those in throughout the playlist because to me, it just seems way out of place where everything's kind of mixed up very nicely. And at the very end of the playlist, there's just these two teachers throughout the ending portion of there with the difficulty a little bit higher than the rest of the playlist. They could have definitely been scattered a little bit more throughout the playlist, I thought. I prefer the topics of this playlist compared to the B2 and the B1 by far. They had way more interesting topics. They talked about culture, way more food items, things to do, way less drawings. I felt like that really drawn out the videos way too long, especially with certain teachers. They got rid of a lot of the drawings where they're just speaking just in the Thai language, and it's definitely kept the engagement up of the videos compared to the previous series. Now, just some examples of what I could understand after finishing the series. So when I was pretty much done with the series, I could understand my wife talking to her friend. This is just an example. She just had a baby and they're talking about, what they're doing in their house, what they're preparing, where they're going to eat, they're, planning the meals, and where they plan on doing, like traveling with the baby. I was able to understand probably about 95% of every single thing spoken at native speed between two natives. Another example is pretty much any casual speech my wife talks to any other Thai person around. I'm able to understand pretty much everything that's going on, the general conversation of the topics. If this very niche vocabulary, obviously I won't know that, but the general idea of everyday to life things are really instinctive to me now. I don't have to think about it. I'm not translating. That's one of the plus of this series is that I don't have to translate in my head. And this is the first time I would love to study another language through my old ways and see if it was like this after all these hours, because that's another difference, is that I'm putting in a lot more hours of studying what I think I was doing compared previously, like with Russian, Japanese, and whatever. I feel like I did a lot less studying hours overall, but I felt that even though my vocabulary was higher, probably in those languages at this point amount of hours of studying, that wasn't automatic. And that's the difference between these two study methods. I feel, as of right now, being 35 years old, would I be able to study a language at the similar difficulty and get the similar results as I am right now with comprehensible input if I put all these hours and hours every day of studying manually, vocabulary, flashcards, and a lot more speaking practice? I don't know. Maybe we'll see that in the future. Now, for other native content, the general tourist stuff, slice of life, YouTube channels, again, I'm able to understand pretty much a lot of these YouTube channels already because they do the same thing. I literally watch and then watch another group of people go to the same city. They kind of visit the same restaurants. And when they speak the Thai language, it's not that difficult to understand and follow what is actually going on. Now, the difficulties I still feel is when kids are talking. So they get a little bit high-pitched voice, and there's some people in Thai that really change their accents unnaturally, where they speak very, very high pitch, or they're talking very creatively, and I still have trouble understanding them. If it's an accent or a way of speaking I'm not used to, it's going to take an adjustment period for me. This is usually after I get done listening to them, maybe about 10, 20 minutes, I can start understanding a little bit more what they're saying. But if somebody comes on with an accent that is just so out there, like this little cutesy language some people do, it's very difficult to understand at first because it's the way of speaking itself is different than what people normally talk about, I'm used to listening to. And a highlight about this series is that one of the teachers, and maybe a few of them, have upgraded their audio. So the audio of this series is better than the other. If you look on the actual channels, and the comment sections are wild sometimes on these videos, people are saying they understand 100% of these videos. And I'm always like, 100% is a lot. I never feel like on this playlist, I understand 100%. Even right now, if I went back to watch the actual videos again, I don't think I'll understand 100% because how would you know 100% if you're new to the language and they're gradually introducing new grammatical terms? I don't know. Some people comment on the videos, always makes me kind of questioning things, but there's usually a professor or teacher, whatever you call them. They always had issues with their microphones, but in this series, they bought a new microphone. Some of the videos, they have their old microphone on their shirt, but this one, they have a professional microphone now, and they probably have some of the best audio of the entire series of any of the professors. So it's kind of interesting going from one of the worst sounding professors to one of the better ones. It's quite an achievement, so congrats to them for buying that microphone. It definitely helps out the series. Another highlight of this playlist is that storytelling was way bigger here than the previous series. What I've learned now is that if there's ever a Thai fairy tale or Thai story, it usually ends very badly and somebody's going to die. People die a lot in these Thai stories that they're sharing about. And it's a unique aspect. It took me a while, honestly, to understand the story. So a lot of things are going on. Sometimes it's about this rabbit and this monkey and all this stuff is going on. And you're trying to figure out what's the main point. Sometimes it get kind of lost in translation there, like in my mind. But storytelling was a great aspect of this playlist, and hopefully they continue that into the following B4 playlist. And overall, it was probably one of my favorite playlists so far. And it's been, this entire YouTube channel has been my primary way learning Thai. Is the dominant way right now. And I must say, I really, really do enjoy this. If you failed learning Thai through the textbooks, if you failed learning another language, you might want to consider using this method. I find it to be, quite interesting. To be quite honest though, it was very boring in the B0, B1, talking about vegetables all the time. But as you progress in the Thai language and you get used to this method, I feel like your endurance to watch videos goes up drastically. So to stay with it, try your best effort. I know some people will say like they're just falling asleep with some of these videos, stay caffeinated, Sometimes if I start realize I'm losing focus, I'll just pause the video, go on something that's motivating, like somebody learning a language or something to motivate me, get back in there, finishing the video, but just stay with it. It definitely gets easier the more you do this. So if you're alarmed that you feel like you're just not able to focus on these videos after a while, you just have to give it time. It's definitely very difficult. The longer I've been doing these videos and making the hours gradually longer and longer, the easier it actually is to complete these series. So just stay tuned for that. Now, my next steps of this channel. So right now, I'm probably way above 365 hours because I do consume a lot of YouTube content and Thai videos as well. But the goal is going to be my 500-hour update after I finish the B4 playlist to get a general idea of where I'm at then, what am I able to understand so you get a better representation of what the results can be if you follow this method. So stay tuned towards those videos, subscribe to this channel, and I'd love to hear your comments. If you're following along with me, how's your Thai learning journey been? What are you doing to study, and how is it working for you? Take care.